Hello, listeners of the future, friends, family, rollers, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of Classing Up the Joint, the part of the show when we ask amazing people asinine questions. My name is Colin. I am your host. I use they and he pronouns, and I am delighted to be joined once again by a fabulous guest that I get to introduce for a little bit of a change of pace. And I've been told to guess the pronunciation of a name, and I may or may not be corrected. So I am being joined by the fantastic showrunner, producer, GM, all-around wearer of many hats of the podcast Stories Told Again. Astute listeners will recall that we have interviewed the cast of this podcast, and now we have the showrunner, producer, GM, in addition to that, a clinical researcher, extensive traveler, and proud human parent of a one-eyed kitten named Percy. Austin Baacke, welcome to Classing Up the Joint, and thank you for joining us. How did I do?
Not as bad as most people.
Fair enough.
The introduction was amazing. You didn't stick the landing. It is Baacke.
Baacke.
Yep.
I was, so again, we were talking about this right before we started, and I'm like, you're asking a clown to do this, and I was like, do I just go back and call it there? Because there's a couple extra A's. Baacke.
Baacke.
Baacke. Baacke. Okay.
Yeah.
Idle curiosity, where is that from?
It is German.
It is German. Okay.
Yeah. I've been told a couple different things of what it could mean. One is that it means baker, and another one is that it means a barren hill where nothing grows. So
wow. Big contrast.
Yeah. And it's even better because Austin means great. So my name either translates to great at baking or great at nothing.
Hey, could live up to both of those things at the same time. Austin, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So our leading question, our first thing that I like to ask people is how you got started in TTRPGs and kind of made them I want to feel like I'm going to guess. I say it's somewhere between hobby, side gig, something, but making a podcast and doing a thing and having TTRPGs and D&D be kind of a focus. How did that start for you? Was it D&D back in the day? Was it a different system? What is the origin story?
My first system was actually Call of Cthulhu.
Wow.
I played it. Yeah. I started off with an easy one. Of course. And I started that when I was 18. I was in a campaign. I played Jasper Black, who was a con artist in Boston. And I played it with people that I absolutely hated just because I wanted to try it.
Sure.
Realized that I really, really liked it, moved on to Pathfinder, and then from there I ended up doing D&D finally. I think it was 3 or 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after being okay, cool, I'm really enjoying this. I don't have people to play with. And I don't think I'm doing this creative enough. I feel this is limiting. Until I ended up listening to the Adventure Zone Balance. And I was like, oh, this is what this can be.
Yeah.
And from there, I kind of realized oh, cool, if I do want to make this character, I can make this character. And from there, it just sort of snowballed from there. I definitely needed a creative outlet. I you noted in your wonderful intro, I am a clinical researcher by trade, so I'm a scientist. So having that sort of creative outlet is always excellent, and just it's definitely a godsend for me.
Absolutely. Well, my imagination is kind of the research is a very logical and right brain sort of a thing. It is very far outside my wheelhouse. I don't imagine it is a particularly creative field, except in thinking of creative problem solving for within a specific range of things. And then you've got this all of my imagination, literally everything comes from me for this game and this other outlet in life.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I actually I started a lab game That was my first time DMing. Was,
Awesome.
A game with like me and like 3 other scientists in my research lab. That game actually is still going. It's probably going to be ending like in a few months. But it's like 3 years strong.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's been a really good time.
I'm a little curious if like, so you were saying like the people you first played Call of Cthulhu with, you did not like. How did you find that game? Did you like find a game at the local game shop or online sort of thing? Or was this people in your orbit that you just weren't particularly good friends with, and they were like, hey, come join our game?
It was very much like people that I was in orbit with and realized very quickly, like that sort of experience that you have in college where it's like, oh, let me latch onto the first people I am able to interact with, and they turned out to be terrible. I'm being so negative for this, but
no, I mean, well, it's interesting to me because many people that I've asked that question were like, oh, I had the right introduction, I had the right game, and I loved the people, and several people are like, I'm still playing with that crew. We've had other campaigns. And I think you're maybe the first person who was like, I hated the people I was playing with, but I loved the playing and I loved the game, so I stuck around and I kept doing it. I just left those people behind, you know?
I think that sort of comes from like the need to be creative. Like in my line of work, even like when I was in college and I was originally engineering, then I moved to pre-med, and that's how I got to do what I do now. It was originally like, I'm doing something that is so technical all the time. I need to breathe. Like I need to do something where I am telling something and creating something that is not just like so for like a purpose. I need to do something just to do something.
Yeah.
And it was very much like a thing of like, oh, like I need to be able to do something. And it ended up becoming TTRPGs.
Yeah. I'm curious about the kind of the progress from this is my creative outlet, this is what I want to do, I want to run it for people in my lab and new friends, to starting a podcast and wanting to record an actual play. And I guess kind of what was the inspiration, what was your motivation for wanting to lean into that angle of the community and of this gaming sphere rather than continuing to do home games or branching out into paid jamming or like that sort of thing?
Well, I originally started as a player on the Found Familiars podcast. I played a character called Tom the Robot, who I originally auditioned with him for Unbalanced Encounters, actually. Our friends, Patrick Brini and Emily Graymore, who genuinely like stories told him would not exist without in a lot of ways. But I kind of realized like there was a character that I wanted to tell the story of, that it just sort of became like I kind of just want to tell it to like more people. And I do write, but I'm not like it didn't seem like a story that I would want to tell through writing. It was a story that I wanted to tell through like dialogue and exposition and like actually getting to experience that. And when it comes to actual play, sorry, I burped.
All good.
When it comes to TTRPGs in general, a big part of why I like this is part of the community. Like, it is both, you get to tell the story to a bunch of people and everyone's excited about the journeys and the adventure that you're on. But also a big part of it is because it's like, you're also a part of like the world's smallest fandom with everyone else who's in the show. And that's kind of what it feels like. I see actual play as more like an outlet of growing that circle, growing that community, and being able to, I don't know, just be excited about something with more people. Like, just even the show that I'm on now, I've only had it out for I think about 5 months now, and I've already made some like amazing friends in the community.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been telling a lot of people, part of my big reason for me of doing this at all is like getting to meet more people in the space and talk about what they're really excited about, you know, and everyone is lovely and supportive. Whether that is like self-selected by like the particular part of the nooks and crannies of the community that I'm in, but like everyone's like, yes, we want each other to succeed. How can we promote each other and like make that small world's smallest fandom into exponential growth until whenever? Hopefully not unrestrained capitalistic growth.
Well, I'm not getting paid, so that helps.
Yet, perhaps. Yet might be the operative word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you think that that DMing or participating in actual play is very different than your style in home games? Either DMing or playing. Like, are you trying to engage differently or tell a different story or tell a more explicit story? Maybe.
I don't really think so. I think that like when I first started, I was trying to do something different. I think that like even when you look at like the first few episodes of like my first show, and then like even if you look at like the first few episodes of like Stories Told Again, you can tell that I was a little bit more. I was trying to make stylistic choices that I thought would be good for an audience instead of ones that I thought would be good for players.
Gotcha.
And then I sort of realized that like I need to focus on it as if it is a game, because otherwise it becomes a product and that's less fun for me and for my players.
Yeah.
It's very much like a build it and they will come kind of mindset when it comes to this type of creation of like, I need to make something that I enjoy and that like my players and my friends enjoy. And then from there, it will branch out and it will find other people that will enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the number of people have very strong opinions on like how play styles differ when you're performing versus when you're hanging out with friends. But I appreciate that it's telling the story that you want to tell will draw the people that want to listen to it rather than trying to tell a story explicitly for an audience of whatever sort.
Yeah. And I also will say that like I do think that my DMing style has changed since I started like doing actual plays. There's one person who's in my home game and in my actual play, like in my actual play community, I guess, my cast.
Sure.
And it's Tiffany, who you interviewed.
Yeah.
She noted to me a little while ago that ever since we started playing, our home games are becoming more like cinematic and more polished. So I do think in some way, like doing actual play is making me a better DM. But I also do think that it's making me a better DM privately than it's making me a better one publicly, which is kind of the opposite of what I want. But like, it's still really nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that to me, that sounds like this compliment of like what you are doing in the actual play is elevating your GMing style at the very least in the cinematic sense, if not everything else. Because, you know, I don't know. I can imagine people are like, I don't want a cinematic experience. I want you to run me through a dungeon full of terrible things that I can smash, and that's all I want. But to have to be bringing that to home games does to me sound like it is it's kind of the actual play feeding the home game rather than like both feeding each other, but a net positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hey, at least one person seems like they're pretty on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you has it also affected like kind of session prep? Like, do you when you're prepping for the next recording episode for Stories Told Again versus next session for home game, is the prep very different for you?
I think it can be to a certain point. I think that like I need to focus more on telling like a tighter and more concise story. But in terms of like the breadth and the scope and like what I will let my players get away with effectively, I don't think changes in between like a home game and an actual play. One of the things that I find that is very, very good and very special about my show is the authenticity that we have of this. We are very much like 5 friends at a table playing, and there just happen to be microphones, and that's something that I really, really appreciate. I think the one thing that I have to do more is that I try to end like basically every episode on a cliffhanger, and that is something that like my players in my home game kind of expect, but it's also something that like I feel like I kind of need to do in an actual play. And I think that's like the only bit of marketing that I do in terms of like my play style. But yeah, in terms of like preparation, I found myself like sometimes I take a shower beforehand and I will do monologues that I'm expecting to have to do like in the shower. Like in one of my episodes of my show, there's like an evil clown who has a this like insane monologue at the end of being like, I feel so inconsequential and like I'm finally gonna win at something and I'm gonna kill you. And literally, like, I'm pretty sure my partner has a recording of me in the shower just speaking and going like, you fat wild fuck, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And it's like, like if it was anyone other than like my partner of 7 years, I'm pretty sure someone would have called the cops. Like, hey guys, I'm so sorry. Can we like change the recording schedule to like 72 hours from now? Something came up.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. If I can pull back the curtain a little bit, ask the question, does the prep include your players at all for the actual play in terms of that kind of keeping it a little more on the rails or being more prepared for like in transparency and like my home games, I assume my players are going to do something I didn't want them to do, didn't expect, and I'm just going to fucking roll with it. And when we were recording the campaign for the roll report, at a certain point, my cast was kind of like, we want more of a dialogue so we can help you do the thing that you're trying to do. And I was like, oh, okay. Before we start rolling, I'm going to tell you a couple of the major beats that I'm intending to hit, whether or not we get there. And so I think that is the question is like, if you can reveal this secret, do you and your cast ever or consistently kind of check in about what you're hoping to get from recording sessions and like how you want the story to be progressing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time. I feel like that is something that you need to be doing, like, even in your home games. Something I say all the time is that D&D is not just a game, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And that conversation should be happening whether you're actually, like, at a table or whether you're, like, just interacting with, like, the person that you are playing with, like, outside of the game. A lot of times it all comes down to like my session zero when it comes to this of like asking what kind of story is it that you want to tell, whether that be like me asking them like what their favorite movie is to like get an idea of like what they respond well to, or to go into something about like how much of this NPC do you want to have in your world. As a GM, your job is to facilitate the story that your players want to tell. It's not just you telling the story, it's you telling 4 stories at once as well as your own and making sure that every single person feels heard and feels seen. I've certainly been in games where I felt more like an NPC than an actual player, and it's such a negative experience.
Well, and you're kind of at that point going like, hey, DM, just go write a fantasy novel. Like, if we're not going to be active players and participants in your story, then like, kind of why are we here? A not uncommon feature of like Reddit D&D horror stories and things is like the DM who's you know, the DM PC who saves the day all the time and the players have no agency. And you're like, what are we doing here, man? I've definitely had DM PCs before, but I try to make them as like stupid or pathetic as possible, or like completely unable to affect the plot in any way. Like one of them was Randy Darien, the Dandy Barbarian, who was like a germophobic barbarian who like literally can't tie his shoes without the without like the bard's help. And there's 2 others in my game right now. One of them is a literal possum. It's literally like it's awesome.
Her.
Love that.
And another one is this concubus that just follows around the party like a puppy and has 1 hit point and keeps regenerating from hell.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I think it behooves good DMs to kind of throw these things in for comic relief and not to take over the story, but to just be like, well, occasionally there's an extra set of hands that might be able to help you out, but like they're not going to offer you anything and they're not going to get you out of a situation necessarily unless it is like demanded by the narrative.
Yeah. I've had one situation that has that, I think, like a little bit, and it's coming up really, really soon. But again, it is something that I worked well ahead of time with the people involved.
Totally.
In a way that felt like very coherent to everything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the importance of the session zero, and I think that's something that we've talked a whole lot about in the show, about the importance of both D&D as a conversation, managing the expectations for yourself and your players. I think I've maybe a 2-part question, which is like, what does a session zero roughly look like to you? Like, what kind of things do you go over? And I kind of would like leading into this, like trying to talk more about the world building that you've done both for Stories Told Again and generally. Is that a part of it? How much do you, not rely, but like how much do your players contribute to the world building in a session zero?
They contribute a pretty significant portion every time. What I normally do is that I start with like a basic concept of a world. For Stories Told Again, it was a couple of different small questions of like, how does it feel to have every decision that feels like has any sort of importance made like decades or even centuries before you were born? Like that sort of like feeling of the world closing in on you. That was sort of like the central theme and the idea and the feeling of everything. And then from there, I worked with my players to sort of like let them figure out what that meant to them. And from there, it ended up becoming like the entire world of Veritora. Like there is a like for Tiffany, Tiffany's character Liv, it was this feeling of like almost helplessness and persecution in a lot of ways that developed into this like order of paladins that are constantly on her tail trying to basically like, just kill her. And for another, it was like this feeling of stagnation of like it was Rain Eldridge. It was this feeling of like their character Vox is literally just like in a scrapyard for basically 10 years, waiting for their life to begin. And for another one, the inimitable Jeff Barry, it was, I don't want to be a part of this at all. It was like, my character's in the Feywild. And I'm like, that is perfectly fine. I love that. Yeah.
A brief side, and this is, I think this has already happened in the episodes, but like, when you have a player that whose character is kind of like, I don't really want to be here, how do you bring them into the story? What hooks do you have to plant, or do you think you have to plant to be like, hey, we're collaborative storytelling, everybody's got to be on board, so your player needs to eventually decide that they're going to be here?
I think something that people find like kind of difficult when it comes to this sort of story about like how to bring people together, the meet in the tavern moment, is they don't all have to have the same reason to be together. Like for a couple of them, it's like a matter of survival. For some of them, it's like this like glorious destiny. For one of them, it's literally just like, I'm along for the ride because it seems fun. Okay, this is like a weird DM hack that I don't think, I didn't realize was a DM hack until I told somebody this, and they kind of like, I blew their mind with it, which is that you should be asking your players what they want out of the story. So like, if you can ask them like, what is something that would work for like your character to want to be a part of this, let me know and I'll find a way to like bring it in. If you can generalize it, I can then specify it and then work from there. Like that sort of integration, it shouldn't just stop at session 0. It should never just be like, I'm having one conversation with you about this character and that is all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Conversation always, I feel like that is, my sense is that particular thing is a trap that even good DMs fall into of like, I know I'm guilty of this myself. I'm like, sometimes I don't want my players to know what's happening, even if I trust them to separate what they as players know from what the characters might know about the future or about the current situation.
Absolutely.
I think it's very easy to just kind of be like, no, we had a session 0. I asked them what they want, and now I'm running the show. It's my story. Yeah. It's our story, but it's really my story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there going back to world building? Are there particular world building like exercises or tricks and tools that you use regularly or that you really enjoy?
I have a couple that I use for one shots specifically that I find really fun. Like one thing that I've done that I find really enjoyable is I take 2 movies and just smash them together and put them in a fantasy setting. Like awesome. One that I did about like a year ago that I still think about was I combined Back to the Future with The Birdcage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was these 2 wizards who were constantly bickering with one another about like, what's the strongest magic? Is it love or is it chronomancy? And one of them was like, okay, cool. If this doesn't work for you, I'm going to storm out and make it so your parents never met. And then it's the party going back to the night that they met at like the I think I said the enchantment under the astral sea dance. To make sure that their parents stay together and fighting that wizard so that way, like, he doesn't just destroy his relationship with the space-time continuum. Awesome. That's something I love doing. Another thing that I really like doing is trying to figure out how to make as epic something incredibly mundane as you can. Like one of my favorite one-shots I've ever done in my entire life. It was the party is looking for this questing beast, after which they have to like prepare its flesh and eat it in a mighty heroes feast, which will open this portal to this great quarry where this dragon's hoard is in the center of it. And it was literally like, it's Thanksgiving. You are eating a turkey, and then you're driving to Walmart and going Black Friday shopping. And that was it. That was the entire thing of it. But it was this like so insanely epic and beautiful thing that like it got to the moment where I was like, in this, on the blackest of Fridays, and everyone like it hit them all at once, and half of them groaned, half of them laughed, and like I was like, I'm pretty sure I actually had both of my fists in the air, just like, yes, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
But like literally, inspiration for world building can come from absolutely anywhere. Like, yeah.
Is there anything you've built for Stories Told Again that you were very excited about? Either, well, whatever spoilers we can have, or things that might have already happened, but like a region, a faction, an NPC, something that you're like, yes, we really, really nailed that in our world building.
There's a few things. I do think that like the corporatocracy that is taking over like the entire continent that they're on, called the Oriri Collective, in the country of the Collective, has been very fun. I think that we're doing like really excellent world building in terms of like making it both like maniacally evil and also realistically evil, and mixing those two together. That's been super fun. Also, like, there's literally a gigantic city in the center of like a continent-sized desert that no one has even like talked about or touched upon once, and I'm really hoping that we do soon.
I see. Now I'm like, I occasionally have thoughts as I'm trying to build and populate a thing of like, do I need to have any practical consideration right here? for example, the game that I've been running with a group of teenagers for like a year or so, we did a bunch of world building together, and they're like, we want to be in a magical flying city, and we want this, and the ground below us is poisoned because the city like dumps all of its magical waste. I'm like, cool. And then we start going, and they're like, what is the sewer system like? How does waste disposal work in this city? And I'm just like, guys, you were supposed to figure that out. But since we're here, there's sewers. And then this one creative kid who kind of keeps going, he's like, yes, and there are magically, genetically tweaked insects that do all the disposal, except they've been down there for so long, they're mutating and killing people. And like,
that's so cool.
There you go. That's how the sewer system works here.
I love playing D&D with like kids or people who've never played before, because they're usually the ones who come up with like the craziest stuff. Yeah, like,
absolutely.
There was this person at my job. She had never played D&D before. She was from Nigeria, and I got to learn like an entirely new class of storytelling, based off of like the stories that she grew up with and the stories that she enjoyed. And the integration of that into my game completely changed my entire campaign.
Yeah, totally. My broad question is like, please tell me more about how that worked. Like, what was so different about the stories and the way the stories were told that she had grown up with?
The way that she described it to me was that a lot of storytelling in like where she grew up, the stories that she like really, really enjoyed, were effectively like, they're not normally based around a party. Like it was sort of like, it was much more like, I would say like heroine focused is like the way that we would like talk about it, in like the way that like it was very much like a Katniss Everdeen kind of way that she always described it, of like one person going up against these things. It was like very David and Goliath in a lot of ways. So from there, I need to find ways to give her like a satisfying like singular storytelling experience while also integrating everybody else in this. So it's like when we hit her story beats, it was like other people were sort of like her support. And then like it was very fascinating because it was like she went back and forth. She was a wildfire druid, and she went back and forth from being both like a mainline fighter to also being like a hardcore support character, and going back and forth from there from like how her story felt like it demanded, it was very fun.
Yeah. So I'm going to see if I can rephrase this and make it accurate in my head, like that those stories tend to come from a place of there is a main character. The main character gets some support, and the main character is taking on a much, much larger problem of some sort, man-made or supernatural or what's it. And so and trying to kind of give her character big main character moments related to the backstory, to the larger story they were telling.
Yeah, and like trying to and definitely in trying to find that sort of like happy medium, which I will say was like a bit of a challenge at the moment, but I think was like it was so rewarding to like experience this and be able to like to show the kind of stories, like let her experience the kind of stories that she grew up with, as well as like experience the stories that like I grew up with, like that, like I said, like it's a conversation, and like being able to take other people's perspectives and put them into the game is one of my favorite things about like TTRPGs and just in storytelling in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, rollers! It is I, your host, debatably friendly DM, and other things, Colin, here to welcome you to the mid-roll. Thank you for listening, and we hope you are enjoying this episode so far. This is your periodic interruption, brief as it may be, to remind you that The Roll Report is on many social media platforms. You can find us around the interwebs at The Roll Report Cast, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Blue Sky. We don't do the other thing. We don't talk about the artist formerly known as Twitter. But you can follow us there for news and announcements, special clips from the interviews you may not have seen, and
learn about who we're going to interview next. Because if you are very intrigued and curious about upcoming interview guests, if you head on over to patreon.com/therollreport and give us a single $1, you can submit questions for our interviews, and only you and only our other supporters on Patreon will hear the answers. That's right, special Patreon-only Q&As with interview guests if you support us there and if you send us questions. Thank you so much for listening. Back to the show. Enjoy!
Wrenching us slightly back to world building for a moment, is there anything that you've built, again, either for Stories Told Again or other home games, that you're like, this will never, ever see the light of day? Yeah, either it was a huge mistake, or I know that we'll never get to this part of the world or this part of the campaign.
Aya's origin.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a possum in a wizard hat in my world who's basically like a chaos god. And I know exactly like how she like existed and like where she comes from. I'm never telling a single person. I can't. I can't. She'll get me. She's watching. She's watching right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, she looks very threatening. That's clearly a like, you need to keep your secret face on.
Yeah. You want this to come after you at night? Do you really?
I mean, hey, it would be the cutest and most horrifying nighttime guest I have ever experienced.
And not the first time I've been almost murdered. It's whatever.
By a possum or generally?
Just generally. Let's move on.
Oh my God. Absolutely. Yeah. Leaping past that. Not going anywhere. Focusing in on Stories Told Again a little bit, like one of the things that I've noticed is that you and I were just talking about kind of rebuilding some of the lore in conversation with Connie Chong. And I'm curious, like, if there are people outside the smallest world's smallest fandom of the cast and crew that you've reached out to help build out the narrative, like who that would be and why, if there are some of those people.
Oh, I reached out to so many people when it came to this show. There were like a number of people that I worked with on previous projects that I was like, hey, did you like when I did this? How would this work? And from there, it was like a lot based on like the production. But also like, this is a weird thing. I got advice from Anthony Birch at like 10:30 at night in a Boston alleyway once.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was
as one does.
Yeah. Yeah, a car was running through. He was like trying to move on, and I was like, "Hey, I'm making this show. Here's my pitch. Do you have any advice?" And he gave me like 3 or 4 pieces of advice that like I still use to this day. And like literally every single time I've met somebody who's even like remotely in this space, I just sort of ask them like, excuse me. Like I asked them, what are the biggest takeaways that you would want somebody who's just starting out to learn? Like I've asked like Ifi Nwadiwe, I've asked Abria Iyengar that, I've asked Connie that, I've asked every single person that like I know who's in this space. And including like I will say a piece of advice that I got from Patrick Perini, this show would not exist without, which was basically never be afraid to ask people to be at your table.
Yeah. Good, solid advice.
Yeah.
Solid advice. I mean, and an enviable group of people to reach out to. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, speaking of, like, do you have, even as newish to the space of like running your own podcast, like what are the biggest takeaways for people that want to try to get into this and are trying to start something of their own?
Never try to fly higher than me.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Make sure you have clear communication with every person at your table, every person in your cast, every person in your crew. Remember that it is a game first, and like it is a show second. If people need to bow out for whatever reason, there are ways to do that and keep that relationship. And I think something we've already talked about and touched upon is like find a story that you want to tell, and people will come.
Mm-hmm.
People will respond to that so long as it is authentic.
Yeah. Solid advice.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Well, and like, I was saying this yesterday, the day before. There's this interesting thing that I've found for myself of as I'm getting older, and like I can offer people advice that I'm sometimes really bad at taking for myself.
I feel that.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who was like trying to teach more dance workshops and things. And like, right, I know what to ask you in this case, which is, who is your intended audience? How are you marketing this? Well, that sounds like you're marketing it wrong, But yeah, I great imposter syndrome for myself of like, who the fuck am I to tell anyone anything? I'm like, I have some amount of experience.
I found a good way to like fix imposter syndrome is to lean into it as much as possible. Like I am not somebody who is like, people are going to find out and I'm going to be a fraud. It's more like I am a criminal mastermind who's getting away with this.
I like it. More sage advice. Lean hard into your imposter syndrome. Nobody knows. Yeah. What do you think is important for new listeners for Stories Told Again that are going to hear about it on our podcast and run, don't walk, run as soon as the episode is over to Stories Told Again and start listening?
It is such a deeply personal story for myself and for my players. It is something that I've heard has already made people cry, which I'm very happy about.
Love that.
Masochistically. And it will make you laugh, it will make you cry. Lean into the absurdity because we sure as hell will. Pet the possum on your way in, I guess.
I mean, I love that both literally and allegorically, metaphorically. Pet that possum on your way in.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could mean almost anything.
It does sound a little bit like euphemism.
I mean, a little bit, but like in a really kind of cute way, It's like it's got the alliteration and like, who doesn't love a possum? Apparently plenty of people, but those people are idiots.
Agreed.
I will say that firmly. It is one of my largest disagreements with my mother, that my mother does not think possums are cute or useful. And I'm like, come on, man. They eat ticks and all sorts of horrible things.
They eat like thousands of ticks a day.
And they're immune to rabies. They literally cannot be rabid, and they are so cute and weird looking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Also, one small thing.
Yeah.
The mystery is the main part of it. That's the point. Like, if you're asking questions, you're listening to us correctly.
Do you ever worry about that being, I mean, alienating is like the most extreme version of it, but like, do you ever worry that it will be a turnoff if you're like, how long am I stretching out these mysteries until I can reveal, this piece or that piece? Or is it more like, well, the listeners that stay with us are the people that are going to be invested in this mystery, and I'm here for that?
I think that we found a pretty happy medium. I think that like there are a lot of mysteries in like what we're doing of like, why is the world like this? What is going on? Are people going to survive? Like that kind of thing. Those can be solved rather quickly. When it comes to the overall world, it gets revealed more slowly over time. But that doesn't mean that like only the mystery is the good thing about the show. I mean, like, I still think that like we have amazing relationships, and I think that the communication is good. I think the homebrew is fun. I think that our voice acting is top notch. The DM is so attractive, and I
hear he's got the face for radio.
I did just book a kitty litter commercial, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that. Congratulations.
Thanks, buddy. But like I think that like the mystery is something that I find to be very cathartic and very enjoyable.
Yeah.
But even if that isn't what you enjoy about the show, there's still something for everybody. There is humor, there is relationship drama, there's just regular drama. We have geopolitics that are going to be coming into play very, very soon. Like there's so much that you can work with that will be something that you will enjoy.
Yeah. I'm curious about sort of your long-term arc planning for this, not in the spoiler sense, but in the like, is it your intention to take the time it will take for all these players to get their characters to level 20 and face the big bad or whatever the final arc is, or are planning on like we will kind of wrap more around like 14 or that the longer arc planning without revealing spoilers that you don't want to?
Oh, we already did level 20, so like we're not going to do that again. Without giving too much away, there was a moment in, I think, episode 9, like episode 8 or 9, where the characters level up for the first time after doing something that is very specific, and from that, you both get like a pretty major clue as to like what the world's deal is. And at the same time, you're also able to tell like, oh, from here, we can kind of discern how many more levels we have for everything. So I think we're going to end around like 13 to 15 is what I'm thinking.
Cool. Yeah. I idle curiosity for myself because I think a number of people have talked about how rare it is for them to take a whole campaign to level 20. And I'm kind of like, I feel like that's been half the ones that I've played, which I don't know if that means I have played a very atypical group of people in a very atypical campaign, or other people just don't want to do it. I don't know.
I do think that like from a GM sense, the idea of like doing like a full campaign of people that are level 20 gives me heart palpitations of like, okay, I either need to throw a Tarask at you every session, or I just let you go through the world like gods. And I don't know how to find the medium for that yet.
Well, I mean, I find that second part kind of interesting. One of the home games that I'm running right now started at level 10 and is going to 20. And my co-DM and I are explicitly trying to ask our players to make decisions that affect the world because they have the power to affect the world at those higher levels. And sort of just because you can change things, should you? How are you going to change them? And not, we're trying very hard to not have it be. My favorite example of this is like the old X-Men Age of Apocalypse arc, where like there's all these intricacies and plots and double agents and double crosses and who's gathering what information, and it all builds up to Magneto punching Apocalypse in the face. Spoilers for 80s era X-Men comics. Sorry. Like, it's just literally just a big splash panel of Magnet Punch. And like, I feel like there were more interesting things to do here.
I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that by way of saying like, we are interested in what our level 20 players do that is not combat. When you can do almost anything and you have the power of demigods, what do you do with it? Do you have an obligation to do something with it? Yeah. So
I do think that like in terms of my game, I think I've had at the time of like from like the recording standpoint from where I am right now in the game, not necessarily like the episode count. I'm pretty sure we've only had like 4 combat encounters, and one of them ended in less than 1 round.
I think that means you are doing something more interesting. Speaking only for myself,
thank you.
I have myself and other people have likened like listening to actual play combat as listening to sportscast. And you hope that it's done well and has a good commentator and interesting players, and still it can just be like listening to a radio broadcast of like a baseball game.
Okay. One of the worst things that can happen in terms of like an actual play, like an audio-based actual play, is not doing theater of the mind. That bothers me so much when they're like, okay, cool, my character goes here and here. And they're like, oh, cool, are you going after this one or this one? And I'm like, oh, I'm going after this one. I'm like, I'm not there. Like,
yeah. I'm not watching your stream. I'm listening to your voice and I can't tell what the hell is going on.
It feels like when you're asking for directions, when you're at like a college campus to a college you don't go to. And they're like, oh, it's like you're trying to go to Halsey. Oh, it's between Freeman and Stonehouse. And I'm like, okay, cool. Where are those? They're like,
what building is that?
Oh, it's by Halsey. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like,
give me compass directions or like a physical description of this building, not something that I can't reference.
Go there and light a fire, like, please.
Yeah. Send me some smoke signals, something.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Zooming out for a minute to kind of like the larger TTRPG space. We've talked a little bit about kind of, I think, in our earlier conversations and other ways, like the importance of bringing more diversity into the TTRPG space.
Yes, absolutely.
The question, why do we think this is important, almost feels like it should have an obvious answer, but it's not always said out loud. And so I am going to ask, like, what do you think about this is important to bring that diversity into the space more?
Stories that are told from a singular perspective usually only have like singular outcomes. If you're able to bring in other people's perspectives and be able to integrate it with your own, that sort of synthesis creates something that is so much more deeply fascinating and beautiful in a way that you could never create something on your own. And when you're thinking specifically about TTRPGs, we're talking about a space that was very explicitly made for people that like look like me and that look I'm so grateful that we are moving beyond that in so many ways because like the stories that we get to tell are so much more deep and intricate and fascinating, and you get to learn so much more. Like third time I've said it this interview, but like D&D is games, it's not just a game, it's a conversation. And like having an echo chamber of like the same people over and over and over again telling the same kind of story, that is just shit. That's absolute shit. You need to actually,
that's modern Marvel movies.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it was so weird. Last session I played with like all white men, and all of them looked at me and just said, "Join the Marines."
Okay. Interesting pitch, going from running a game to join the Marines.
Yeah. But like it is. I don't even think that it's just like something that is like inherently like a. I do think that it's something that is like almost a responsibility to bring in other people and make sure that everyone in this space feels seen and heard as like basically we have for the past 50 years. Yeah. But it's also something that is like creating just something that is so much more deeply beautiful and fascinating. In like the framework of the world. Like a good friend of mine is Connie Chong, and like the work that they are doing at Transplanar is so deeply fascinating and is telling a type of story that I could never tell in a million years. And it is just such high quality in beautiful prose. And just like such a fun game to look at. And like that game just it would not exist without that type of diversity.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I agree. Especially like one of the things for me that really hits home is how limited your storytelling is if you only have one kind of voice telling it. Whatever that kind is. Like honestly, I would imagine it's very similar if you I think a stereotype of TTRPG spaces is like 6 white dudes with beards in a basement, and like they're gonna tell one kind of story, most likely, more likely than not, and versus the like, I honestly, I would imagine a similar scope of story, a similar narrow scope of story, if that was a table that is all African American women, right? It again, you're like, if you are homogenous in your table, you're telling a homogenous story.
Absolutely.
Whatever that might be. When you were trying to cast for Stories Told Again and like assemble the crew and the world's smallest fandom of that, how were you trying to, I guess, be aware of this and not take it to an extent that felt not true to yourself or not genuine?
Something that I was so incredibly lucky about is that literally from the get-go, I was the like every single person that I reached out to specifically to be like, I want you to be a part of this. I reached out to because they were telling such deeply interesting stories that I could not tell. And they just also happened to not be cis straight white men. Like the origin of Stories Told Again basically comes down to a bus ride that I had with Tiffany. We were both working. We were both working at a research center, and the first show that I was in, it just ended, and I was very, very much broken up about it. And we sort of had this conversation about like, that does not need to be the end of the story that you are telling. And I'm like, I do agree with that, but also like I want to tell a story that is worth telling. And she was like, then find people to do it with me. And I literally just pointed at her and I was like, fine, you're doing it with me. And she's like, what? And I'm like, no, you don't have a choice now. You are doing this with me. And it was just because like, literally within like 2 sessions of playing with Tiffany for the first time, she was like, I am going to take my gold pouch and I'm going to throw it at the player because I passed a history check last session that said the way to solve problems is to throw money at them. And then rolled a crit on that and ended the combat encounter.
Brilliant.
And like I said, like I would never have thought of that. And I very much like playing with people who think very differently from me. And I think from that, it just led into a very fascinating and diverse cast of people. Like I met Jeff Barry and I met Took, who I've not mentioned yet, but is wonderful, through Emily Graymore and through the Unbalanced Encounters team. And that would not have my show would be fundamentally different without both of them. And Rain, I literally met in college where we played cowboys doing Seinfeld impressions in acting class. And I was just like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. That's great.
Yeah. One of the things that for me was like so cool about talking to Tiffany is kind of, their journey of like, oh, I started playing like 18 months ago. Like I don't know, man. You're asking me about my favorite character class and subclass, and I'm like, the one I'm playing. And to go from like I have just started and now to be trying to like make it as a voice actor and like being on an actual play, it was like that's what a cool. I'm not going to call it a midlife crisis, but like what a cool kind of midlife drastic pivot that you're making.
So one of my favorite things about Tiffany, and I've said this to her face, is that there's never been a moment in our friendship where she has said that she wants to do something and then doesn't do it. And by that I mean like she's like, oh yeah, I think I'll like quit my job and become like a professional voice actor instead. And she did it, and it's and she's excellent at it and it's amazing. But like that kind of like bravery I think is also something that I really, really needed in order to like take this step. In a lot of ways.
I mean, one of the other things we talked about, I don't know if you and I have, but like how, for me, I love that technology has made it so anyone that wants to make a podcast or a video or like whatever, anyone who wants to make certain kinds of art, you just can. The tools are all at your fingertips and way easier to use, but that leads to like an oversaturation of the space. And like, how do you set how do you tell your story in a way that will bring people to it when they can pick from 9 million stories hovering in the air all around them?
Absolutely. I do think that Stories Told Again is already starting to move through that and sort of stand out in a way that makes me very happy. I think just from like the level of authenticity that we're playing, the relationships of the characters, the depth of the story, again, the attractiveness of the DM.
Big draw.
Yeah.
Big draw on an audio medium.
Thank you. Hey, Mom, got a face for radio.
Hey, Mom.
But I think also it's like the amount of work that we do behind behind the mic as well, especially in terms of like diversity and sort of like that level of empathy and accessibility. Like one of the first things that we ever did when it came to our show was that we got somebody to do our transcriptions to make the show more accessible for people who are hard of hearing, or like anyone in the deaf community. And even if we don't necessarily have, like, one of the things that I'm most proud of when it comes to this show is that even if we don't necessarily have the understanding or the context in order to understand something about the world or about somebody's experience that's going to be in the show, we will do as much research as humanly possible and ask for those sorts of experiences from either the people like in our fandom, or we've reached out to people. Like quite literally today, I spoke to one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the world about accessibility differences in a fantasy setting for people with limb differences, because we have an NPC named Carp who's related to our cleric Luce's backstory, who has a limb difference, and sort of talking about how are we able to tell the story authentically. And that isn't necessarily something that we've like talked about in terms of like our marketing, but it's just something that we're doing to make sure that we're telling as like good and clean of a story as possible. And we hope to do like basically any sort of person that has that sort of experience.
Yeah, I'm like looking, I for those who cannot see what's happening, I have a list of things and topics and questions we were going on. I was like, this is answering this question of like, what are you doing about diversity in your podcast? And I was like, I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about this. And I wanted to flip that to one of the kind of the last questions that is on this list about this topic of, what do you think other actual plays, or like we're saying, if someone is listening to this and wanting to start their podcast, their actual play, what do you think is important, like most important for them to consider when it comes to diversity, either at their table or accessibility for their listeners?
Widen your circle. And if you become like, find people that you enjoy playing with, start there. If you're going to tell something that is an authentic, good story, people are going to react to it and respond to it no matter what. But also, like, again, I feel like it is the responsibility to elevate other underrepresented voices in your show. And making sure that you're doing that as, like, I keep saying authentic, but like as authentically and as, like as sensitively as possible. Both in terms of like telling interesting depth to your story, but also just because like, if you get to that point and you're not raising up other people, then it's kind of a dick move, like,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna leave it there. Widen your circle, generally speaking. And I want to wrench us back to asking the most important question, the absolute essential question. Austin, what is your favorite character class and or subclass?
Oh, this is difficult.
Or multiples. Multiples are always acceptable.
I have a few that like I really, really like. Tome, my first actual play character, was a divination wizard, which is so fun, especially if you want to mess with like other players. I'm playing an Awakened Mind sorcerer right now that is insanely fun because it's also like it's multiclassing into rogue. That creates like some really, really interesting synergy. I haven't gotten to play it yet, but my partner and I are working on this idea that we have for a genie warlock and celestial soul sorcerer. As like one of them is the other's patron.
Wow.
And that I'm really looking forward to.
Cool.
And also just like Genie Warlock is just one of the most deeply fascinating subclasses in the game, just in terms of like you basically get like a baby wish if you go if you go far enough. You just have a house. It's so deeply beautiful that you get to have wish fulfillment in D&D like owning property.
And having friends and regularly getting sleep and or paid.
Accurate.
Fucking wild.
Yeah. Also outside of D&D, one of my favorite things is in Monster of the Week. One of the subclasses, basically, like one of the classes for your character, is literally just called the Mundane, and it's just you are playing the most average person in a terrifying world, and you get powers based off of how normal you are, basically.
I love that. I like know a decent bit about the game, but I've never played it or run it, but it's on those list.
There's an excellent show called Storytellers Squad that they are doing like a cryptid-based campaign that is absolutely wonderful.
They did. I was lucky enough to have Natalie and Brittany a couple months ago. What they are doing with that system is really, really interesting. And the fact they've been able to make like an ongoing lengthy campaign out of it is like,
oh, absolutely.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Is there a main class that you find yourself gravitating to more than any others for unknowable or knowable reasons?
I like wizards.
Same. Same.
If you play a wizard well enough, you kind of feel like you're cheating. And that is like one of the best ways that you can, like, wizards are made to be like the cheaters of reality. They are the people who like do their homework well enough that they're able to like manipulate the fabric of like the self. And that is just something that I think is so deeply fun. Also, just as a scientist, like, it feels like such like a really, really fun sort of like connection between like the two sides of like art and science. That I find just very deeply fascinating personally.
Yeah, absolutely. I am just a big fan of like having one of the biggest spell books in the game and getting to add almost anything you want into it over and over again. Austin, thank you so much for joining us, and like what a lovely time it has been. Where can people find you or Stories Told Again on the internet if they want to know more?
So my personal TikTok is Austin B, as in like the animal 15. You can also find Stories Told Again on Instagram or Blue Sky or TikTok just by searching Stories Told Again. The show itself is also on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and I think 2 others that I'm unfortunately
all
forgetting.
of the ones. Send that RSS everywhere. Rollers, check out Stories Told Again. You will not regret it. If you have remotely enjoyed some of our guests on the show, you know how good it's going to be. New rollers, hello and welcome. You can follow us at the Roll Report Cast on many parts of social media. And if you really like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating or review wherever you're listening to us. And if you really, really like the show, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/therollreport for as little as $1 a month. And we would be so happy to keep doing this with or without your money, but with is nice. With is very nice, until we destroy capitalism.
Hell
we can
yeah.
dream, right? We can dream. We can dream, and we can make the fantasy world where capitalism was never a thing. Austin, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much again for joining us. It has been such a delight to get to nerd out and talk about world building and all the things. I am so appreciative of your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been excellent.
Wonderful. Until next time, rollers, roll more dice. Don't let your DM stop you. Something like that.